Hi, I'm Aeon. This is a video. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to more Geometry Dash. Today, we're going to be having a little bit of a sit down, a little bit of a chit chat with you guys because the last week has been incredibly eventful. There's been a lot of stuff that has been happening, such as Kyoki verification, Limbo verification, a new top 1 creator. However, the one thing I want to be talking about today is something that related to the demon list. So, while I'm not necessarily on the demon list myself, because as you guys know, I was banned from the demon list as of my own request, I still do pay somewhat attention to it, and I do have my own thoughts and opinions about things regarding the list. As for those of you who do not know, I used to be one of the owners of the demon list back in the day. So the thing in question here is show hitbox on death has been given a limited ban, and what they mean by limited ban is that it is not fully banned, but it is banned under certain conditions. And a lot of people have been raising a little bit of eyebrows about this because it doesn't give you any advantage in the attempt that you're playing. Why would you ban that, right? And basically the whole idea is that it can give you slight advantages that is not something you can achieve within regular play. When it comes to banning stuff that is not available through regular play but is available through mega hack, people are very quick to assume that, oh, it's just because, yeah, this and that, right? I have some thoughts and opinions about this that I think are not necessarily interesting. Show hitbox on death is like the least interesting thing you can ever discuss, like ever. However, if we go over here, this is the thing. So let me just read this. As Frostburn said, we have noticed it is possible to use the hack to gain an advantage on specifically challenging timings, memory parts, or just able to give a general advantage through continuous use. And therefore, we are implementing a limited ban specifically for exploits that may have made possible by the hack. Instances of these exploits include, but are not limited to, frame perfect or near to this level of difficulty timings that allows for clues to the true hitboxes of obstacles, for example, hard machine. Basically, what they mean is that the really ridiculously hard timings at 78 and 80 in hard machine that are nearly frame perfect, they are 120 hertz and 90 hertz frame perfects, respectively, become easier because you are able to see. One of the things that makes the 78 timing in hard machine specifically difficult is the fact that you cannot see this triple spike. It is a spike that you cannot see, so finding the hitbox itself is challenging. That is like part of the challenge of the level, not being able to see it. You can see it in the attempt, but however, being able to tell where the hitbox is after dying gives you a general idea of where it is. Now, here comes my devil's advocate here, because I think that is a completely valid reason to ban for. In instances like this, I think it is completely fine, personally, before you get your pitchforks and try and stab me to death. The reason why is because when you are a very good player, you'll have a much easier time to adapt on the fly. Let's say you jump early on the frame perfect in a hard machine and die to it. You don't know how far into you died. For all you know, you could be in the middle spike because you don't know any better. But with show hitbox, you know exactly how far in you are dead, meaning that for the next attempt, you have a much easier time to adapt yourself on the fly, time it much more easily. I find myself all the time being like, oh, I died so early, I released so early or so late, and then I check and it's like 2 frames off, and I'm like, oh, I just have to adjust myself a teeny tiny bit, right? So being able to tell how dead you are, to put it that way, is a huge advantage, and it is something that you cannot achieve through regular play. So for timings like hard machine, I think it's completely a-okay. I think it's reasonable. However, my main concern with this is that I have no clue how they're going to be moderating this, because that kind of stuff is mostly just for like practice. I don't know how you would moderate practice. Like, I understand it if you're not practicing that much and you're just kind of like winging it, because I do know there are people who like to wing stuff like this. But how would you not know where the timing is when you're winging it? Like, I understand the sentiment of it. I 100% agree with the sentiment. However, I don't understand the practical application. And the practical application of this is, oh, if you die to 78 and you realize exactly how far in you die, next time you get to 78 is going to be easier. However, most likely you're not going to be getting to 78 for another, like, a reasonable, maybe like an hour, so it wouldn't matter anyway, because you're just gonna ride on the muscle memory anyway. So I don't know how they're gonna be able to moderate this in terms of like practice, because this is generally just a huge advantage in practice, right? Now, this one I 100% agree with. Invisible timings that were not intended to have visual cues, for instance, of Ambrosia. I 100% agree with this. I do not think that you should be allowed to use hitbox, show hitbox on death to practice invisible levels. I think that's stupid. The way that I've practiced all of my memory levels is that I've just practiced them by brute forcing, using layouts, and then just going forward with it. Using hitboxes for memory levels or invisible levels especially, I think is a completely valid thing to remove. I think that is completely fine. Using show hitbox on death on invisible levels and memory levels, I think should have been banned long ago. That has been one thing I've always said. I've always told people that if you practice and learn levels with show hitbox on death, you're kind of goofing. Now, I've done it myself before, And the reason why I have this bin in is exactly because I have done it before. I did it for SPL, I think. I used show hitbox on death for SPL, specifically the checkerboards part at like 40%. And I was like, man, this makes it so much easier. Like, this doesn't feel legit. So I did it to begin with, and then I stopped using it after a while because I was like, yeah, that makes it way too easy. That makes it just spread way too easy. I'll just go back to using my layout method. You might be wondering, but Aeon, using a layout still makes it easier. Checkmate, idiot. But no, that's not the case. If you're using a layout, you're not practicing with the actual visuals of the level. Practicing with the actual visuals of the level is a huge difference. That's like saying if you know how to play Deadlocked, you should be able to do Invisible Deadlocked like first attempt, right? That's not the case. When you're playing Deadlocked, you're using other things. When you're playing Invisible Deadlocked, you use the background colors and the background flashes and the music way more to actually like figure out how to play the level. So it's a whole different things. Using the actual like visuals of SPL to learn SPL, it's a huge difference. I agree with this one. I know a lot of people aren't going to be agreeing with it, but if you are this much of a pussy bitch to learn a level, don't play memory levels. General cases where overall usage of show hitbox on death allows for more accurate pinpointing of specific timings. For instance, SPL and Requiem. As I said, I used it for SPL myself. I did not think that it felt legitimate. I kind of felt bad about it. I won't lie. I also think SPL is overrated, and that might be a reason why, because I learned it much faster than I expected to. Exactly because of the fact that I was using show hitbox on death for the first like 1,000 attempts that I've been learning it until I realized, wow, it kind of sucks. This makes it so easy. So I think that's completely valid. I think the hard machine example is the one that I don't really 100% agree with, mostly because of the fact that when you practice something like that, like a frame perfect timing, it's easy to just like overlook stuff. It's easy to just be like, okay, yeah, you figured it out, and then it's fine. But with memory and invisible stuff in general, it just makes it so much easier to learn, and the learning is a lot of the difficulty when it comes to those levels. Like I've been saying this for a really long time. I think both Requiem and Killbot are very overrated levels in terms of difficulty. But it's not the difficulty of the level itself that makes it hard. It's the time investment. A lot of people relate the difficulty of a level to the time investment necessary to actually beat the level. That's why SPL keeps creeping up the list. SPL is like the power creep of Geometry Dash, where it keeps going up the ranks of the demon list, specifically because of the fact that people take as long to learn SPL as it takes to learn other levels. As people get better, they will beat other hard levels much faster. However, SPL, the time investment needed to beat SPL doesn't really change much because of the fact that it takes a long time to learn, right? And the same goes for Requiem. So I think the learning aspect of those memory levels is the reason why the levels are as hard as they are, and the reason why they keep creeping up the list. I had this discussion with Volcanium after he beat Requiem, and he said, yeah, dude, Requiem is just super overrated. Like, it's not that hard, because both of us are people that like doing memory levels. We like the learning process of levels in general, and we don't really necessarily let the learning process dictate too much how we feel about the level's difficulty. And then Requiem, like a week and a half later, got moved up 3 spots, and we were like, what? Why? We were just talking about how this is super overrated, but then it got moved up because people think that learning stuff like that is like super hard, right? So for those levels, I 100% think that's a completely valid thing. I think it's completely reasonable to actually ban it, right? Anyway, let's keep going. So to keep usage of the hack fair across submissions, the usage of show hitbox on death will be disallowed under specific conditions listed below. Conditions for a record to be rejected are as follows: a specific instance in the attempt before submitted run completion where the hack is exploited for the purpose stated above. So if you, for instance, die to 78 on a hard machine and somehow beat it the next attempt, you're gonna get rejected. That is such an inconceivably low chance, though. However, it's not that crazy, because there is one of the reasons why hard machine is as hard as it is the 18% jump. So I could actually see a lot of hard machine completions get rejected because of the 18% frame or 120 hertz frame perfect, because if you have a show hitbox on death, it will be much easier the next time. So I could actually see that being a very big thing. I could see that happening quite frequently, actually, now that I think about it, as frequently as people complete top 10s, that is. 2, significant evidence from the raw footage and or other sources that the hack is habitually used and is used on the attempt before completion. When I was talking about this with some friends, I was like, oh well, it doesn't really matter. I don't use it anyway. I think show hitbox on death looks ugly anyway, so I don't really use it. But there's a lot of people who have just been habitually using it for a really long time now, because it's so easy to just like use it to pinpoint exactly how you died for learning purposes and for consistency purposes. But that's exactly why it's getting banned. And I've been sitting on it for a while, and it's like, I don't know whether or not I agree with it. Like, I agree with it with invisible levels and memory levels, right? I feel like I've gotten that point across. Very, very, very simple and very, very straightforward. I agree. Memory levels, invisible levels, levels do not allow show hitbox on death, it's cheating, right? Because it makes it the learning process and everything so much easier. But habitual use on the attempt before completion, I'm just like, for 99.9% of levels, it really does not matter. Like, the amount of levels that I can name that where show hitbox on death gives such an advantage to the point where it should be straight up banned is so incredibly low. Like, if we look at the entire history of the demon list as a whole, right? We're talking from day one up until today, we've maybe had 7 levels total that are so affected by this that they should be banned. I think that it is better personally to just ban it from specific levels instead of banning it from specific, or just banning habitual use. I know it's stupid of me to say, oh, it's just a game, all right? Because this is a competitive leaderboard. Competitive leaderboards are always going to ban stuff, even if people don't agree with it, because it does give an advantage. And when it comes to mega hack, you are forced to spend money on something that gives you an objective advantage. Stuff like FPS bypass is allowed because it is free to use for anyone through Mega Hack V5. However, most people have Mega Hack V7 anyway. Show hitbox on death is not available on the free version, therefore you are forced to purchase it, which gives you an objective advantage through purchases, which is kind of what they're trying to avoid here. However, I don't know. I think the habitual use and it's used on the attempt before the completion is kind of silly, just because in so few instances does it actually make a massive difference. Yes, hard machine, I can agree. 18% of hard machine, ridiculously hard. Having show hitbox on death on the 18 death and then going on to pass it, that gives you an advantage. I can agree with that. That is something that I specifically think is completely valid, completely fair. However, there are so few instances where this is actually a thing that should be considered. I think it's better to just ban it from specific levels, personally. The only levels on the list currently that I would think would actually benefit from having this banned currently is honestly probably Acheron, Hard Machine, Of Ambrosia, Requiem, and the Art of the Blade. Those are the only levels I can currently think of, and SPL. Those are the only levels currently on the list that I think where you would gain an objective advantage from having this on. Acheron has an incredibly difficult pre-drop that would definitely benefit from it. The memory levels, as I mentioned, it's because of the learning process, making it much easier to learn the level. And as for Hard Machine, it is just the 18% jump. No one's realistically going to die to 78. I guess 29 as well. But anyway, tell me what you guys think. I'm gonna stand neutral on this. I think there are instances where this should definitely be the case, where this should be banned. However, I want to hear what you guys have to say. No hate towards the demon list. Please do not send any mean messages. This is an open discussion. This is a valid criticism of the list, and I think everyone at home there should also criticism with a little bit of respect. Remember, these are people who are doing this as a hobby. They're just doing it for the integrity of the list and to keep the game running smoothly, because competitive jump dash is a huge thing, right? Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys around. Eat your green, stay healthy, dehydrated. I think we can mind it, but I hope my yours a little bit better too. Take care, everyone.